I'm Jack Berryman, ACSM historian, and we're here this afternoon talking with Janice Thompson. Thank you, Janice, for coming. This is part of ACSM's Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science DVD series. Well, Janice, I just wanted to start the beginning, the early years. Where did you grow up? High school, sports maybe at the time, interests, and then when you decided to go to college and where and what you did. And so let's just start with that.
Yeah, well, I'm from Northern California originally, so I was raised in a very small farming community, a town called Live Oak, which is about 50 miles north of Sacramento.
Ooh,
so if people know the geography, then they'll recognize that very small town, about 3,500 people. And I lived out with my family outside of the town, a couple miles outside in a walnut orchard.
Country down
So I've got a lot of physical activity as a child, not only playing outside, outdoors, and my grandparents had a ranch as well, not too far away, so we did a lot of outdoor play. But I had to pick a lot of walnuts, and that was not the fun activity, but you know, it's actually really good for you, and there's lots of things involved.
And
it's
you
quite
can
exhausting.
eat them, too.
Well, you have to do it really fast. You have to get them all picked before the rains come, see, so it's a seasonal thing.
So you can't be nibbling and picking, you've got
Well, and it's all dirty. No, you gotta know that it's kind of a messy process, really. So it's what you get and you see. There was a lot of hard work involved. So, but I grew up there, and I was involved in sports probably from about 7th grade on. I got really interested. So I was always a child that played. We rode horses, that kind of stuff, motorcycles. But in school, I got involved in sport. I always really liked volleyball, even though I'm very short. But I loved volleyball. So in high school, I played volleyball, ran track. I kind of did everything. I wasn't very good at softball. I wasn't very good at basketball. So I didn't play them. I chose instead to be scorekeeper or things like that. So I was always involved in the sports, both for watching the guys and then playing myself, doing things as a female. And then I didn't think I was going to get to go to college. Because my parents didn't have a lot of money, and they hadn't gone, so I didn't really think I'd get to go. But as a child, I always loved Jacques Cousteau and Jane Goodall on television. There was National Geographic specials, and I thought, amazing, this is what I want to do. I didn't think I want to be a scientist, but I thought this is a fantastic job. Really, this is what these people do. It's amazing. And then I was always interested in art as well, but always interested in animals and science. So. I got done with high school, but then I did get some scholarship money because I did well in high school and could afford to go to community college. So that's how I started. So I went, and I loved it because I could play volleyball there. And so I went to Butte Community College, which is in Oroville, which is near Chico, and was on the volleyball team. In fact, I was captain, and we won state championships that year, which is, I know, it was really exciting.
And in California, that's good volleyball.
Not bad. I mean, it's indoor, of course. We weren't the outdoor. We weren't near the beach. So exactly. So we looked very different. But so that was exciting.
But that's hot.
And same thing. And I ran track, and I met some of my best friends. So again, I'm not a fast runner, but I did hurdles just because I like doing things that aren't stereotypical.
And a challenge.
Exactly like it. But I had fantastic classes at community college, and I went in saying I want to do zoology and art. And I thought,
how do you do that?
Yeah, maybe I'll be a medical illustrator. I just thought of all kind of different things, and then really took some a lot of different science classes that I loved, and met through my sport the athletic trainer there. She was fantastic. Her name was Fran, and we loved Fran. And so we're like, how do you become an athletic trainer? So she was basically telling us. So I decided I was going to go to four-year university, and I wasn't good enough to play volleyball at the bigger university, of course, because it was just tall girls. I couldn't compete, the tall women.
And they're recruiting all over the place.
Exactly, and they were great. They said, you can come, you'll probably sit on the bench. We're happy to have you practice. You kind of maybe make the team, but you can't really play. And I said, look, this is too expensive. I'm paying my own way through university. So I went ahead and decided to get a job.
And besides, you need to study, too.
Exactly. So I thought I'll study, I'll do my college, coursework, and that's when I really decided either I might want to be an athletic training major, or there was this sort of newer major that had come out called exercise physiology.
I'll be darned.
And it looked interesting.
Let me interrupt quickly because as a historian, I didn't get an important time period for you. What's the time frame of junior college?
I graduated from high school in 1980.
Okay.
So 80 to 82 was my junior college years. And then I transferred from there from Butte College. I got my associate's degree.
Your AA.
My AA, and so then I was able to just transfer in, and I decided to go to Sacramento, Cal State University, Sacramento, or Sac State, because it was, still geographically I could manage that, because my family was kind of still close within that area, but also it was affordable, and they had this program, exercise physiology, and they already had a very well-known physical education program. So at that time, exercise physiology was housed within physical education. So I majored in physical education, even though I didn't want to be a PE teacher. And actually in that time, even in California, the PE teachers that was shifting, where they weren't actually going to be PE teachers in the classic way, where you had one per school, like I had as a kid. They were shifting where you had a few that did multiple schools, if you know what I mean. I forget what they call that.
Yeah, they moved around a different day at a different school.
But I was in classes with a lot of those people, but because I wanted to also do exercise physiology, I ended up taking pre-med, pre-nursing courses as well. So the pre-physical therapy stuff I was taking.
So you had a really good science background.
Exactly, and in math as well. So, so I got my undergraduate degree there, and I worked with Professor Bill Bynum, who is an amazing guy, and he built a high-altitude chamber in New Mexico. Back in the 60s when the Olympics were in Mexico City. He was inspired by that, so he was really technical.
60,
and he had an airplane that he flew, a small, a four-seater type of plane. He was this great guy, and he was just really inspiring. So I thought, this is exciting. So I finished my undergraduate, which took me 5 years actually, because I worked a lot. I went full time, but I had a lot of extra classes that I took as well for a lot of the sciences. And at that point, decided I did want to do exercise physiology, but had no idea what I was going to do when I finished. And then I had been working in a deli in Calistoga. So I was commuting. I was living in Sacramento, commuting to the wine country in the weekends. It was just awful. It was just terrible.
Someone has to do it.
It's just terrible. But it helped pay my way through. My undergraduate was fantastic and really fun, of course, as well. And then I was offered, was made an offer. I was going to graduate, and the deli offered me a really good job managing the deli for a decent amount of money. Or I could stay at Sac State, get my master's, and even though they had one research kind of assistant, like teaching assistant kind of position. They had them for the different topic areas. So they didn't have one in exercise physiology. That one was already taken. However, they had one in motor learning. And I enjoyed my motor learning class, and I loved the professor there, Barbara Barty. She's brilliant. And she said, I'd love you to take this. You're good with teaching, and we'd love it. You did well. So it didn't matter that you're exercise phys major. Do you want this? And I'm like, so I chose between this really well-paying job in the wine country, and I said, no, that's what tells you, that's why I became an academic. No, I'm going to not get paid much of anything.
For the rest of my life.
Exactly, and I'm going to get my master's degree. So I did, so I went ahead and got my master's there, and
Did you get tuition waiver and all that with your, was it a TA or
It was a TA, so it was
like
actually
that?
more of a salary. They
So
didn't
you
really.
got paid?
I got
and
paid,
went,
but I don't think they waived my tuition, but it wasn't that much. I don't think it got waived. Maybe it did then.
Yeah, some of them did.
So, I know for my PhD there was some. So again, I didn't plan to get a PhD. So again, again, this woman who has no career plans really. I always tell my students, I know your parents panic, but don't panic yet, because I've never really had a plan, and I still don't have a plan. So, and it's worked out pretty well.
So was that 2 years then?
I actually it took me 2.5.
Did you get to do a thesis in exercise phys?
I did.
Okay.
In fact, I was the first person in our lab to measure lactate.
Oh,
so I was interested in that was when the whole lactate threshold, ventilatory threshold, debate was going on.
So you're the thesis then? When were you looking at the lactate?
That would have been in that was 85 to 87. So I finished up in December of 87. But before that, because Bill Bynum says, well, Janice, what do you want to do? And I said, I really don't know. And he says, well, have you thought about getting a PhD? And I laughed and I go, oh, God, only smart people get PhDs. There's no way I'd get a PhD. And he says, believe me, you'll be fine. So without him even, posing the question, I wouldn't have even considered it. Not that I was against it. It didn't even enter my head, And so I loved the teaching. I'd been involved enough that I really enjoyed what I was doing there. And I thought, I would like to be an academic. I think this is something I would love to do. So there was this great program at Arizona State University at the time. There was a student there who had been at Sac State as well, Fred Baldini, still to this day one of my really good friends, and he's back at Sac State and has been there for quite a while. He's high up in administration
So
now.
he was in grad school at Arizona State.
And he was a year ahead of me, and so I met him at Sac State, and he was already at Arizona State with Jim Skinner. And Fred goes, oh, Janice, it'd be great if you can come here. Jim's got a studentship, if you want to come. So, but of course you have to apply. You have to compete. And so I did. I filled out all my applications. So I only applied there. I probably should have applied to other programs, and I didn't.
You were just sure of yourself.
But no, but it costs money, and I only had so much money. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I thought, what can I afford to do? And so I went ahead and just took the leap of faith, and Jim was great. He accepted me into the program, and I ended up being there for 4 years.
Wow.
And so there they waived my out-of-state tuition. So you still paid in-state tuition, but my studentship was out-of-state tuition waiver.
Yeah,
and
which is significant.
yeah, exactly. It's huge. And then, of course, a stipend. You know, I worked in the lab.
Of course.
So you work in the lab, you know, all the time. So, and I did a 4-year. You know, the PhD was supposed to be 4 years. It took me 4 years, so that went really well. So then I was in Tempe in Arizona State.
I forgot another important question earlier on. Did you hear about ACSM when you were at Sacramento with your exercise physiology, and you knew about MSSE then, I'm sure?
Yes, in fact,
all that.
By the time I was a senior, you know, my final year at college and at Sac State, when I knew I was going to go into the masters, I mean, we'd already, of course, knew about ACSM. I went to my first chapter meeting.
Oh,
yes, so I
good.
started in the Southwest chapter. That's where I started. So I went to this chapter meeting, and Bill Bynum, that's why I mentioned the plane. He flew me in his plane because I couldn't afford a plane
I'm
flight.
glad
So
I
he was
asked.
fantastic. So he.
So you're a senior. You're an undergrad.
I was an undergrad, and I went to my first chapter
very
meeting,
neat,
which was so exciting. And you know, I saw George Brooks, you know, presenting. You know, it was amazing, and arguing and yelling with, you know, Brian
Debating
Whip or
stuff
Wasserman or
back and
somebody.
forth.
Exactly. You're seeing them scream at each other. They're like, wow, you know, this is amazing. And so I got, you know, introduced there, and then when I started my master's, that's when I started to attend nationals. So I think my first national meeting was in 1986. And I've attended every meeting since 1986.
Really, Janice?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Not many people can say that.
Yeah, so I come every year, no matter where I live in the world. And yeah, and it's like a family, really.
This is home, family, friends,
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
bit. So anyhow, I took you off track.
I
but I'm glad-
think I was getting my PhD at the time.
Yeah, we're back to 4 years, you said, in Tempe.
Yep, which was great. And I worked with Jim Skinner, and I got there, and I'd always been interested in nutrition. But the academic system, in fact, it's still set up such that a nutrition degree is very separate and usually a different college or a different part of the university than an exercise degree. Even though we're all interested, many times we overlap. There is sport nutrition, but you either take the dietitian route, you know, and you become a dietitian and you do things that way, or nutrition, or then you do exercise. And you can be interested in both, but there wasn't really a set program anywhere where you could combine them. And so when I got to Arizona State, I became very interested in energy balance, and I said to Jim Skinner, I would love to do more. And he goes, Melinda Menor is great. We work with her. She's fantastic. So she was at Arizona State in nutrition at the time. So I ended up meeting with her, and she took me on. So she and Jim were brilliant. They said, you can do what you want. They know me well. Don't try to argue with me. Just let me do my thing.
Just leave me alone.
Exactly. And so I was like, I want to combine it, and they let me. So I did. I actually did a dual degree. I did a lot of courses in nutrition because they didn't have a PhD in nutrition.
Yeah,
but they had advanced courses because they had masters.
So you could do coursework, get your degree over here.
Yeah, and I was still in exercise science. It was an exercise science program. So I was with, you know, motor learning, biomechanics, sports psych, you know, all the people. We were all kind of a classic department, and then I was taking courses in nutrition. Exactly. So I combined my PhD in exercise physiology and nutrition.
Yeah,
and
very
then
nice.
so I had 2 supervisors.
Yeah.
A little greedy, but it worked out really, really well. And I got to measure my data. I got to actually collect data in the NIH Indian Hospital Chamber, the metabolic chamber. Eric Ravison was there at the time, and he wanted data on athletes. So Jim Skinner was able to, you know, Jim Skinner, he can talk anybody into anything, and that's what he did. So he talked with Eric, and Eric's like, "This is fantastic. I've got about 12 elite athletes.
Do it.
So for free, you know, they just funded it and let me do it."
Was that your dissertation?
That was my PhD. Was a series of measuring different athletes, resting metabolic rate in the lab, and looking at energy balance, and looking at they were all men, and so I was assessing and found that some men are more energy efficient than others. So they're all competing at high levels, but they are eating a vastly different amount of energy.
Yeah, interesting.
But their body composition is very similar. Their performance was very similar. But they, you know, they were metabolically, you know, at least in terms of energy expenditure in the chamber as well, different.
Yeah.
At rest, and a lot of this was spontaneous.
That must have been pretty new finding.
Yeah, and I got it published in Medicine, Science, and Sport.
Oh,
It's one of the
good.
only papers I think I've ever gotten published in medicine.
And you started out there, right?
Exactly, so that was good. Yeah, so that was nice. But they were supportive. By the time I left my PhD, I already had 4 publications when I was there, which was really, really good.
Neat,
because everyone was really, they worked together, they supported you to do that. So I was trained very much that you're here to write grants, you're here to publish papers, and it was really clear you're here to do high quality research.
Yeah.
And obviously your teaching should be of high quality and sort of evidence-based or science-based as well. And then through that, because I was very interested in that topic, I ended up getting to meet Gail Butterfield because she was very interested in energy efficiency at the time.
Well.
And we really wanted to work together, but she didn't have any funding at the time. She was at Stanford University at the time. She worked in the VA hospital, actually, and it was through Stanford that Gerald Raven, who does diabetes research, Jerry Raven he did a lot of mouse diabetes-related research in mice. But he coined the Syndrome X. He coined the term Syndrome X, which is now metabolic syndrome.
Oh.
So yeah, it's kind of taking back quite a bit in history. So Gerald Raven was great. He had 1 postdoc left that he wasn't going to use because it was really low paying, so none of the medical doctors wanted it. And it was for 1 year. And he says, I'm not going to use it, Gail. If you want it, you can have it, but when this person comes in, they're obviously going to have to get their own funding. So they were doing a lot of studies there on postmenopausal women and ways they might be able to sustain bone, muscle, and improve metabolic health, and they were looking at growth factors as well at the time. So they were doing a range of things. So I said I would love to come in and do some diet and exercise interventions, but I had to do some growth hormone and IGF-1 studies as well. So I learned a lot about metabolism. So that's what I did. I did my postdoc at Stanford in endocrinology, gerontology, and metabolism. And worked directly with Gail for 3 years, and we did a lot of different studies together. But I was able to extend my funding. I was able to get an NIH.
Yeah, I wondered where the next 2 years came.
Yeah, I applied. So
Good.
they were great. Andrew Hoffman, who's a big endocrinologist, he was very supportive. So with him and Gail, I put in a NRSA, a National Research Service Award through National Institute of Aging, and that's where I got my extra 2 years of funding. So I got that. So I'd already gotten a lot of practice, and there, of course, I wrote other grants as well, and we got some money from Shackley to do some things with a drink that they had and other kinds of things. So we did lots of different kinds of studies, but it mostly focused around lifestyle, physical activity and exercise in postmenopausal women, and trying to optimize metabolic health and body composition, really, with some weight loss as well. So we were able to do that quite effectively, which was good. But I was always kind of wondering, well, we have all these numbers. I was all kind of physiology. We also did bone. We took bone samples. We had muscles biopsies. We did quite a bit of invasive stuff. But I was always curious because some people don't change, and I always thought about why is that? And I wasn't trained in psychology or behavior change or anything. But the question always stuck in my mind. So then I was offered a post, my first kind of official paid job, exactly, at University of North Carolina in Charlotte. They had kind of an assistant professor post job, and I applied and I got it, and they wanted me to run their human performance laboratory there, and that was quite teaching heavy, but their goal was to try to build the research program. And so I went there, and I was there for 3 years. So I had a great experience. I just ended up, for personal reasons, moving from there to New Mexico. So I was in North Carolina for 3 years. It was a great experience because I not only got to know the Charlotte area, which is nice, and I'd never lived in the South. I never lived in the Southeast ever. I've always been out west. And so just culturally, I loved it. It was really a great experience, and I did a lot of teaching, so I got to really hone my teaching skills. I wasn't doing as much research as I wanted, so that was one frustration for me.
What were the years you were there?
I was Stanford 90, so I finished my PhD in December of 91. So I was Stanford 92 to 95. And North Carolina 95 to 98.
Okay.
And then I ended up getting married, and my husband, my ex-husband, wasn't able to find a job in North Carolina, but I was able to get 2 job offers in New Mexico. I ended up accepting an offer in the medical school. And this is with
Where is it? Is it in Albuquerque?
It's in Albuquerque, yep. So University of New Mexico. And they have a health sciences center, medical school, and it's in Albuquerque. And there was a big research center that did a lot of work with American Indian communities, and they were looking for somebody who did exercise and nutrition stuff, which I do. And I had already started to diversify my interests. I was still wanted to do aging stuff as well, but I was becoming very interested in ethnically diverse communities and how people respond differently to disease. It was kind of getting on the role of, higher risk for people, whether it's deprivation,
almost
whether
leading into anthropology a little bit.
Exactly. I started to get really interested in that, and then I was able to get this job in the center, and it was really amazing because I learned so many different kinds of methods. So it took me out, that removed me from the lab. So it was a big jump for me. I said, I'm leaving the lab now, and but I was becoming really interested in community health and things like that. So I think it was just a natural progression, and I got fantastic training, and I started to learn qualitative methods along with all my quantitative work. I learned field data collection methods, and I worked. I ended up being in New Mexico for 7 years, 3 years in that particular center where I started, and I worked on a large obesity prevention trial in American Indian school children called Pathways. So it's still, I think it's still the largest obesity prevention program that's really been done in school children, but for sure in American Indian communities. And that was a multi-center study. So I worked with people at the University of Arizona, Scott Going, Tim Lohman, and other groups around the country, because we worked with different tribes, and I worked with the Navajo tribe in New Mexico. So then I did get to go out. It was an amazing, adventure. And then through that work, I started collaborating with a woman named Janette Carter, who was a physician, and she very much focused on diabetes in American Indian communities. So she wanted to put in an NIH grant and to extend some of her work, and wanted me to be a part of that. So I was the co-investigator on that because she wanted to add more nutrition and physical activity into her work. And so we ended up getting the grant, and so I ended up shifting into her office, still in the medical school, but now I was in the Office of Native American Diabetes Programs.
And you're really not asked to teach much,
I wasn't asked to teach much, but I still did it anyway.
You still like it?
Always. I taught the entire time. So I taught in the nutrition department on the main campus in New Mexico. I did a lot of different kinds of lectures in the med school when they needed. I trained medical doctors to do research, so I would help advise and supervise research projects being done by medical doctors. And so I still did a lot of different kinds of teaching because I've always enjoyed that. But I obviously very heavy in research, and it was all soft money funded. So my 3 years at Stanford and then my 7 years in New Mexico, I had to bring in all my own money for me, and then eventually I ended up, sadly Janette was killed in an airplane crash, and I took over the office,
Yeah, well, same with Gail.
Exactly.
Premature
Exactly.
death.
So I've been
so sad,
that fortunate to work with amazing people, but I always try to say it's not me. But you kind of wonder.
Relax.
You can work with me, you'll be okay. So I've been with some really amazing, very, fantastic, males and females. To be honest, I've always been fully supported by men and women.
Doing
so I have
the right thing at the
great
right
role models.
time, and
Exactly.
So Janet, ACSM, you've had a lot of roles, Board of Trustees, the whatever, all the whole way. Did you start doing more in ACSM sort of in the New Mexico era?
No, with Gail, right in my postdoc.
Sooner.
It was Gail Butterfield. She said she got me right away involved.
Yes, I remember her at all
with
the
chapter.
meetings.
So she got me right involved with Southwest. So she was the executive director at the time, kind of that, it's kind of
for the chapter.
For the chapter.
Yeah.
And so she, got me involved right away. And then when she was elected vice president of ACSM, she put my name up to serve on the pronouncements committee.
Okay.
So that was the first committee I served on.
Big committee.
It was my first big committee, and I was on pronouncements for 10 years, and ended up chairing it as well. And so that was a huge amount of committee work, and I've served on a number of other committees throughout the years.
I used to see your name on there. It seemed like everything
a lot,
over the years.
And then, and then in New Mexico, I was, that's when I started to chair pronouncements there, and then I was asked to run for Board of Trustees. And so I served on the Board of Trustees when I was in New Mexico, and then I was, during that time also then eventually asked to run for vice president, and I was elected as vice president. So I served, but part of that time then I was in New Mexico, and I'd been there almost 7 years, and I sort of wanted to change, and Chuck Corbin at Arizona State emailed me and said, well, we'd love you to apply, we've got a job here, would you want to apply? And I said, Chuck, I love the university, but I just, I don't like Phoenix, no offense, and I just didn't want to, I said, I'm kind of tired of the desert, I love New Mexico, but I just need a change. So a couple weeks later, he emails me and said, there's this amazing job description, and I read it, and I thought, you're the only person in the world who's actually qualified to do this, because they want somebody who does both nutrition and physical activity, who does community-based work, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so he says, and it's not in the desert. And I said, well, where is it? He says, it's in Bristol, England.
I was hoping we didn't run out of time
Nope, exactly.
before I got you to
Yep.
England.
Nope, so that,
That's
yeah,
pretty, so
that
it's
was
sort of
huge.
like the job was written for you.
It was, and also I was really looking to go back on like a salary, you know, where the university actually paid
Yeah,
me. And
where I'm not
'cause after,
writing grants all night.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
it's you know, it's great. It's an amazing adventure, but it's hard as well. And I was
Yeah.
supporting other staff, but
Yeah.
I was also very sad to leave. I made so many good friends there, and they're
Sure.
a fantastic office, mostly American Indian employees. They were just just amazing, really, a
Yeah.
big adventure. I loved it. So then I was off, so I applied and I was interviewed and I was offered the job in Bristol. And that would have been, so I was at New Mexico 7 years. So I was in New Mexico, what would that be, 98 to
95 or 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
So summer of 2005, I immigrated to the UK. And I was in the midst of my vice presidency then. I think people were a little bit worried. I said, no, don't worry. I will.
I'm still here.
And I
we
did.
still have email.
I didn't miss a beat. I can fly. Planes actually fly over the ocean.
Right.
It happens. But also, that's when the college was really, ACSM was really moving for trying to get everything quite more global. So that's, I think, when a lot of discussions that I was really passionate about, to say we need more international
Perfect.
members. Also, I'm glad they developed the International Board of Trustee role, because many times a lot of, you know, the bulk of the members were in the U.S. and they may not know some of the people that are fantastic and
Yeah.
doing really good work,
Yeah.
but they may not be as familiar with it. So that helped expand that as well. So I try to have a global voice. Even though I'm American by birth,
Yeah.
I feel very much international, because I've now
Sure.
been living in the UK for 8 years.
Yeah.
So I was at
Yeah,
Bristol
that's-
from 2005 until just this past year in 2012, and then I was made an offer I couldn't refuse at the University of Birmingham, not Birmingham, Alabama, but Birmingham, UK.
I have a lot of English friends that pronounce it correctly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great, it's the top program in the country. Birmingham and University of Loughborough kind of tied for top in terms of research.
Loughborough is-
Yeah, they're both really good
Yeah.
programs. So I was made a job offer. So I'm a professor there in nutrition, public health, nutrition, and exercise is my title, professor of public health, nutrition, and exercise. And I just started there in September.
What's their department structure like? Or what are you, I guess, do they have schools, colleges
Where there's,
too, and with
where there's
deans,
schools,
or how are they set?
a lot of the universities, they're shifting. Some universities are a little bit different, but a lot of them now have gone to this almost like super school structure. So you don't have the smaller departments anymore. You have a school. Like our school is fairly large, and it's sport and exercise sciences, but we also are now we're welcoming this year physiotherapy, so we're adding a rehabilitation segment as well. So we're changing our name to School of Sport and Exercise and Rehabilitation Sciences. But within that, we have smaller, what we call research and teaching groups. And so that's how we manage, you know, the groups of people with different disciplinary interests. Because we have pedagogy, we have motor learning and control, we have, you know, things like that. So that's how it's managed there. And then above that, we have a college. So we're part of the College of Life and Environmental Sciences, our school.
That's good.
Along
That
with
makes sense.
biosciences and psychology and a few other groups. And then that's how it's managed, at least at Birmingham. Some other universities are managed differently.
Do you have undergrads the whole way through,
Yes.
doctoral?
At Bristol, I didn't. At Bristol, we had masters only. We had masters and PhD students.
I'll be darned.
So we
You
had.
probably missed the undergrads.
Well, at Birmingham, we have a lot of undergrads,
Yeah,
so I'm
so
back
you're
in the
back.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I've come full
Yeah, I
circle.
enjoy
I've
undergrads,
almost come
too.
full circle. I'm sort of almost back into a very similar kind of system and structure I would have had in my PhD at Arizona State. That sort of a department or school, that sort of, you know, undergraduate programs, different ones, master's programs, as well as doctoral students. So it's all very familiar, and you know, so I do research, I teach. I'm director of research currently for the school.
Do you have your own lab? Or how
I
does it-
don't, because the world is my lab, the outside world is my lab, so I do a lot of measurements really in the community.
So you still stuck with that,
I have.
what do I call it, field work, I guess, for a lack of a better...
Yep. And I do mixed methods now, so I do quantitative and qualitative measures.
qualitative,
I work a lot with anthropologists. I went to Bangladesh for 3 weeks when I was living in Bristol. I got a grant working with Bangladeshi women and their families in Cardiff, and that allowed me to, because we were comparing transnationally what happens when you immigrate from you know, Bangladesh to the UK, and most of the Bangladeshi people who live in the UK have immigrated from the area called Sylhet, the Sylhet region, which is in the northeast area of Bangladesh. So I went back and did measures. So it was almost like it wasn't quite Jane Goodall, you know, or Jacques Cousteau, but it was pretty dark. It was the most
fun,
amazing.
huh?
It was well, it's amazing because I don't speak the language, and of course I'm with researchers who do, but I'm also with families. So we recruited through word of mouth, and everything was done through families, and it just was really fantastic. So I've been given things I could never have thought of, and. But I love the lab still, and I'm very respectful of the lab science. I still read it a lot. Tons of my friends, of course, they work in the lab, and they're the big guys and gals who do work in the lab. It's fantastic. So I read their stuff. I love their
Well,
you know.
It's nice that you're director of research. I mean, what better person? I mean, you've seen it all. You've done it all,
and now I'm I'm co-supervising, second supervising students who are still doing lab-based work. So I'm providing advice on, dietary assessment, energy balance measurements now that they're trying to do in the lab, and I've done it, so I can say, well, this is how it works. So it's working really, really well. It's it's perfect. So
I told you, well, we're 10 minutes over.
Oh, no.
It's because I didn't have anyone else coming up, and I'd rather keep talking. Because what an exciting career.
Yeah, no, and ACSM, I mean, I've always been there, and I've also expanded that. Now I'm a member of the ECSS, the European College of Sports Science, which is sort of the European model of ACSM, very European. And I've been now serving on the scientific committee there for a couple of years, it's a fantastic organization, and also it's very much student and young investigator focused. So they've got a lot of really good awards, very lucrative awards actually, through Mars for research, and the students present. So it's a really interesting meeting. So and every year the president is invited from ACSM is invited to go over and do a keynote there.
Oh, good.
So Barb Ainsworth was there last year when we were in Bruges, which was amazing.
Yeah.
George Brooks came and did a really nice keynote when it was in Liverpool. And Ben Levine was there, I think, in Liverpool as well. So plenty of ACSM people. So it's nice. We've got this nice sharing. And of course, our colleagues from there are here now at this meeting. And some of them serving in the Board of Trustees role and everything. So I think that global mission is now being accomplished. And I think it's really taking off. And I've just really benefited because I now love living over there, and of course I come back to the U.S. and visit my family regularly, but I really enjoy working over there, so it's been a fantastic experience.
It all sounds good.
Yeah,
very exciting.
I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
I told you it would be fast. Thank you so much.
Okay.